Hello Exiles, I'm back. Just in time for the Lake of Calandra League, which I'm pretty excited about. I don't know that I'm actually going to play it very much, but I like the changes, so I thought I would at least share with you what I found most interesting about them, and a build that I think that makes use of them pretty well. So what I was interested in was the Juggernaut change, where we now have Unbreakable, which I think makes it the most tanky ascendancy in the game. And I was also very interested in the minion changes, specifically having to do with poison, because poison is doing so much more damage now. And I thought I would showcase a build that has both of them. I would not call it a solo self-found friendly build because it uses Arkaali's Fang, which is not a particularly common drop now, and things are getting rare, supposedly, according to GGG. That said, if you do want to run this SSF, you can. You would just be only using the animated weapon part. So if you were to turn off Arkaali's Fang, you'll see DPS goes down to about 2 million. It would actually be a bit more than that because presumably you're going to replace Arkaali's Fang with a +1 or 2 minion wand and some useful modifiers. But the best thing to do would definitely be to have Arkaali's Fang if you can get it. If you weren't running it though, instead of these 3 gems, which you obviously have for the Arkaali spiders, you would instead have a Wither totem. So Dispel totem with Wither just to make sure you still have the stacks. With Arkaali's Fang, the spiders will swarm anything, so if you have Withering Touch on, which I do, the Wither stacks will be up there almost instantly against a single target thing. So we are getting our armor, which is about 130,000. The gear is not particularly inspirational. I'll go over it in a second. There's nothing really crazy here. It's mostly this hybrid armor and evasion stuff because we are converting all of our evasion into armor anyway with iron reflexes. So the aura setup is how we're getting a lot of this, which is Determination, Grace, Defiance banner. And since we're converting all of the evasion, grace, and defiance banners all going into armor, which is how we're getting our fat armor. So this is our max hit, and this is with a guard skill not turned on. So if I turn that on, it will be even more, assuming I actually click the buttons. So this is an incredibly tanky character, and I'll show you the configuration. I did bump the enemy skill damage up to 10,000, enemy skill lightning damage up to 10,000, just so you could see how it has against chunkier hits. But even the ones that I didn't adjust, I mean, it's on Guardian/Pinnacle boss, which is a little over 2,000. So very, very tanky against basically all damage. The regen isn't much to talk about. I didn't take the regen node. Obviously, if you wanted to spec into that sort of thing, you can. But I thought it would be better to be able to move around and be immune to freeze and stun, and just generally have a bit higher quality of life. So this build is using the animated weapons and the Arkaali's Fang skill, which called Raise Spiders, which spawns 2 spiders anytime you kill something. So what we're going to do is we need a copy of the Writhing Jar. So you'll hit it, cast Bladefall, all the spiders will die, it will make more things. I've done this in the past. I actually haven't done it with Bladefall, so maybe check this first, but I know you can do it with, I think it's Divine, let me see. Divine Ire is a good one to make sure you get all of the worms first before your Sparties kill them. I'm sort of assuming Bladefall will work because I've used it in a different build, but I haven't actually checked that. So if you need to use Divine Ire on a weapon swap or just instead of Bladefall there, that may be a better way to get your spiders going. But in any case, as long as you kill them and not your spiders, you're fine. And then if you have Gravebind gauntlets, you could obviously do it that way as well, though that is competing for the glove spot with Triad Grip. So I'm going to go through these uniques and tell you which of them are actually important and which of them I just sort of threw on because they were generically good and made it faster for me to set this video up. The ones that are obviously important are Arkaali's Fang, because without it you can't do the Raised Spider's skill. The second most important is the Ancient Skull. It says this is a massive DPS boost. It's over 2.5 million just from the Bone Skull. And going down to the second best helmet for damage, which is probably Learcast, you're still losing 2 million. So it's comfortably the best helmet in slot. We don't really care about our minions' maximum life. We can cast the blades fast enough because we're not doing any damage skills ourselves, and the spiders are immune. They can't be killed. So one more thing to note on the helmet slot is that the enchant is really good. I don't have it turned on by default, but it's very strong. It's another million or so in DPS, or I guess maybe 700,000 rather. But 700,000 just for a helmet enchant, pretty decent. So if you can get Flesh Offering grants an additional 21% increased attack speed, definitely go for it. So these two are important. Triad Grip is the third most important, so you want this with 4 white sockets. That means your minions will convert 100% of physical damage into chaos damage. This is not too hard to achieve. Just run Varici and research until you get lucky enough to hit all 4 white. Yeah, it's fairly simple. If you've ever done Varici Betrayal runs, you can do this. If you get any additional pairs of Triad Grips you get while you're doing that, you could throw Chaos Orbs on and try and get lucky, or double Corrupt, but Varici is definitely the best way to do it. They're not essential. They add about 1 million damage per second if you have them on, but you could swap it out for something else like Gravebind if you wanted a very smooth sort of spider raising thing. The next most important is something that gives you +1 curse. Doesn't matter what it is. Doiter's Damning drops the most frequently in my experience, so that's the one I put on there, but Wind Scream will do it. Obviously, like a nice Hunter chest would be ideal, but this will be something that you upgrade when you have more currency or just have crafted better gear if you're an SSF. So just any source of an additional curse. It does add quite a bit of damage because it allows us to run both Despair and Temporal Chains, and Temporal Chains is very good with poison because it increases the duration that's on them. Finally, the Jinx Juju and this Spirit Shield, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, aren't really important at all. They are generically useful though. They're good because they increase your aura effect, which is very useful for this build because our auras are giving us our armor, which is most of our defense. And then the Jinx Juju also increases our curses, which we like because our curses are doing a lot of work for us. That's why we're using both the Spare and Temporal Change, because they're both very good. So these are both just generically useful if you can get them, but they're less important than the other things. I think I already said you want the Writhing Jar to start the spiders, so that's also important to have at least one. If you have a second one, that's also probably pretty decent. Some upgrades when you get it. I'm not even going to try. The Aminamu's Gaze, I guess I am going to try, is very useful for damage. You would obviously then try and get the different kinds of eyes in your gear somewhere, which I haven't bothered with this because I'm not using it. Some of the other things I have sitting here, like this would be if you were doing just the animated weapon and not the Arkaali's Fang, because they're competing for the Slam slot. But before you have Arkaali's Fang, if you have Cold Iron points, then that is a useful thing because that will increase the level of your animated weapons. I don't think there's too much left to go over in the gear. I didn't bother setting up an animated Guardian, although it is probably even better than the Spectre, really. I was cramped for gems, and frankly, I'm not doing a full build guide, so I didn't bother setting up a whole animated Guardian thing. But if you are doing it, Learcast, just generic animated Guardian thing should be good. I say Learcast specifically since it got the upgrade with the uniques changing. If you could turn it into a curse bot with Wind Scream in some way too, I'm not sure how you would apply both Temporal Change and Despair off the top of my head. I'm actually not sure that you can. I don't think there is a Despair on hit, so never mind. But just generic Animate Guardian is good. The Spectre that I'm using is Carnage Chieftain. He's still the best, even after the Frenzy Charge nerfs. It's still worth 1.2 million, so definitely worth doing if you can. I don't know if there's too much else to go on. I hope you guys have a great league. Like I said, I don't know if I'm really going to be able to play it very much at all, but I am interested in it. Poe is a game that I sort of enjoy looking at, even if I'm not playing it. So even though that I'm going to be pretty busy, and I'm not sure how much that I'm actually going to play the league, I hope that you guys have a whole lot of fun. And if you do try out anything like this, whether you're using the Animate weapon or Arkaali's Fang or stacking armor with the Juggernaut, please let me know how it goes for you. Feel free to leave any comments, and I will try and answer them as best I can. Yeah, anyway, have a great league. Iquus out.